Welcome back to our webinar Wednesdays after our August break, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dawn Lane, and I am the Program Development and Implementation Manager for the Massy Learning Institute. In our leadership series and presentation today, we will look at how to establish your personal competitive advantage. Often, society makes individuals feel that they must replicate the traits and abilities of successful people. However, while emulating these traits and abilities may have their benefits, the true value you bring are your own unique capabilities. You can establish your own personal competitive advantage by learning how to harness these skills and abilities. Today, our leader and presenter is Mr. Jason Sambrano, Managing Director of Roberts Manufacturing Company Limited. A little bit about Jason, and I can't even begin to fill this space with Jason's accomplishments, so I'll just give you a little snapshot. Jason started his career at PwC, or PricewaterhouseCoopers. He was the Finance and Information Systems Director at St. Lucia Distillers Group of Companies. While in St. Lucia, he was the private sector representative on the VAT Implementation Committee, which was chaired by the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. On his return to Barbados, he took up the position of CFO at Roberts Manufacturing Company Limited, and then moved to the position of Managing Director. He is past president and current first vice president of the Barbados Manufacturers Association, BMA, and sits on the membership committee, of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados, ICAB. Jason holds a degree from the University of the West Indies, Gayfield campus in management. He is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA, Lean Six Sigma Belt, Black Belt certified, and he has attended JMW Leadership Excellence, a breakthrough in performance management program, and he also attended JMW's Leader of the Future. Just a snapshot of Jason. I wish I could do more, but we want to hear from him. So Jason, I welcome you to today's session.
Thank you, Dawn, for that introduction. I appreciate you going through some of my accolades. It sounds very good when you say it like that. I think I may need to pay you more for some more endorsements going forward. I just wanted to thank the MLA team, Audra, Dawn, and Renee, for inviting me today to make a presentation. I was deeply honored by the invitation to do a presentation in the series, the Level Up Wednesday series. And to be honest, when I was invited to do the presentation, I actually got a bit of a swell head, because I told myself, well, from what I know, people like Mr. Jervis Warner, Mr. Ian Chinapu, Ian John have been executives who presented. So, I felt like I am now high-flying executive in the upper echelons of the Massy universe. But, I then told myself, well, now that these preceding executives who followed me, I have to hit this one out of the park and do an excellent presentation. So, I started to think about topics that I could present. One of the topics I thought of was how to, being a chartered accountant, was how to squeeze every last living cent out of a profit and loss. But then I could hear the snoring of people in the Teams universe out of that topic. And I don't think some of my team members who I work with here may be very happy with me doing a presentation on that. So then I said, well, outside with that idea. And then I went on, a couple of weeks ago, I started to watch a show on Netflix called How to Be a Tyrant. And, it had qualities of a tyrant, of confidence, clear vision, ability to influence, and then crush your enemies. At that point, I was like, well, I don't think Mr. Warner might be happy with me presenting this to the Massy team, And certainly that would be kind of the creating value and transforming life that they would be looking for. So then I really kind of sat back and seriously contemplated what topic would really add value and be something that could be a presentation that is authentic and really look to have a conversation in terms of the personal benefits for individuals in navigating not only life professionally, but personally. And that's when I came about how to establish a personal competitive advantage. In life, we normally think about competitive advantage more in the organizational context, but it's very much can be applied to how we perceive ourselves and how we navigate life on a daily basis. And this just links to today. I really wanted to be about a conversation. I know, given the dynamic and how the medium by which we have to do the presentation today, it's not like what we would normally do prior to COVID, where we would be normally in a room and we will be making a presentation, and there'll be a lot of interaction between the presenter and the attendees, and a live discussion. But I really want to keep that context and that feel to today's presentation. And today is not about giving you a roadmap and saying if you tick these boxes, voila, you have competitive advantage. Is really to stimulate a conversation, to stimulate self-thought, some self-awareness, some introspection, to see really where does my competitive advantage lie? What is unique to me that adds value and I can bring a benefit to what I do on a daily basis. I know it's Wednesday and it's the middle of the week, hump day, but very much I would like this, given my personality and who I am, for this to be like a Friday afternoon conversation. It's after work. If you had a long week, you want to relax, whatever is your adult beverage, whether it be wine, punch-in, rum, Chairman's Reserve, a cerveza down in Bogota, or you're laying on the beach in the Cayman Islands and having a pina colada. It's very much that type of laid back and relaxed, I should say, atmosphere that I want to have in having the conversation today. And I hope that is the spirit in which we have the presentation today. So, this first slide is really looking at, in life, most times we're given a message, as Dawn said in the introduction to the presentation, that, there's a consistent message of this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to replicate, or almost like this is what you need to be a carbon copy of to be successful in life and professionally. And that, if you replicate what successful people have done, that is your sure guide to success. And while replicating what people have done or emulating what successful people have done, or their habits or their traits, does have its benefits, it is not a be-all and end-all to being successful and bringing something unique to the table. I don't know how many of you may be familiar with the Matrix trilogy movie. I mean, I may be giving away my age, in terms of movies and so forth, but in the background of this slide is a character from, I think, the second installment of that movie, and it's Agent Smith. And in this second installment of the movie, he comes back with this special ability that when he touches someone, they replicate into an exact copy of himself. Now, given all that we've achieved in society to date, I think we can all agree that a lot of the things and a lot of the innovation that we would have experienced to date would not have come from people thinking exactly the same way or having the same context or the same viewpoint on things. And I think that is where we need to take the example of in our differences is where we have our value, and be confident that that value has meaning. It can be derived value, can give added benefit to what we do on a daily basis. And we really have to, get outside of the comments. I have a thing here. Sometimes you hear when you're growing up, people say, your neighbor's son studying to be a doctor, or architect, or an accountant. No pun intended. Why you can study to to be that. You know, that's something that'll be good for you too. So, you know, we've heard those messages when we were growing up about we need to follow this pre-molded path. This is the pre-molded path to success. And, you know, we need to be confident enough that while, yes, that may be true, but it's not all that is true or all that is factual, that there are other aspects or other things that can be done that can bring success to you and enrichment to you. Or sometimes we even internalize a message. We see someone who is successful. Why John does so good, Sally does so good, and they're so successful and they get so many things done, or they do all the right things. And we internalize a message like that. And as I said before, emulating what people have done who are successful and some of their traits is not all a bad thing, but the inherent value is what we do differently. And this brings me to the next, you know, idea I would like us to consider is that in terms of your confidence, we need to have the confidence that what I do is unique and has value. What I am able to do or bring to the table, which may be different from what Jason Sambrano could do, or the person who sits in the cubicle next to me or the office next to me, what I can do differently has value. And I think we have to have the confidence that to believe in ourselves. And I think that's the first step. You know, I'm not saying every societal norm or what is the status quo is necessarily a bad thing, but is in the inherent differences that the value is created. So, you know, I just want to look to a comment that was made by Jeff Bezos. I'm sure a lot of you know who Jeff Bezos is. In one of his last communications as CEO of Amazon, he said, you know, he had this quote here: "The world wants you to be typical in 1,000 ways. It pulls at you. Don't let it happen." And I think that's a very powerful quote, and I would love to repeat it. The world wants you to be typical in 1,000 ways. It pulls at you. Don't let it happen. And I found that to be a very powerful comment by Jeff Bezos. So we all know, you know, he started off his business at a time where the bricks and mortar was the market leaders at the time, and to be thought of starting some business out of your garage, delivering goods to people's homes, may have been thought to be, well, you know, that don't make any sense. So I think innovation and doing things differently has a lot of value. And I think the questions we have to ask is, what makes me unique? And to give you a personal example, I remember I was having a developmental conversation with some Massy executives, and one of the executives who didn't know me from before, when we were having a conversation, and we started to interact, made a comment to me that, you know, that they really admired how my ability to make people feel comfortable, you know, fairly quickly with me and my presence. And, you know, sometimes we have unique that we discount. So I was like, you know, I was like, well, that's just me. That's just how I am. And I took that comment away from my developmental conversation and really kind of try to look back in my life to develop, okay, this is something that someone has given me very positive feedback that they admire and find is a very positive trait. Where did I develop this trait from? And when I did some self-reflection, I realized from early in my career when I was a manager and stuff, I remember speaking to my CEO at the time. And I told him, and this comes on to a comment, one of the last points on in this slide, but you know, you have to make yourself vulnerable. You know, I told him this is something I would like to develop, because, you know, one of my worst things that I really didn't like was when I went to, you know, they all talk all about you need to network as a professional, to build out a network, make contacts. That is how you grow as a professional. And I remember when I would go to networking events, I would absolutely hate the feeling of when I went into the room and I didn't know anyone in the room. I walk into a room of people and I just felt uncomfortable because I didn't know anyone. So what I would do is that I would immediately go and find somebody to talk to. I may not have known them, but I would just find somebody to talk to. So in my mind, I can say, well, look, I'm talking to somebody in the room, and I've started that process because I didn't like the feeling, that feeling of discomfort in being in a room or not knowing anyone. And I remember from that spun off from, me feeling that way, is that I didn't want anyone else to feel that way when they came to an event or came to a table, if you had a business function or just out in general socializing. So I made it a point that if someone new came into a group of people, say a group of friends, for example, and someone new came in and didn't know anyone, I made it a point to talk to them, introduce them, make them feel comfortable. And I just discounted that as something that I just did. But when I got that feedback that somebody admired that aspect of me, I decided to say, well, look, this is something unique that I can use to help me, and not only personally, but professionally. And when I come down to the second question of how this difference could add value, is that, professionally, sometimes you have to have tough conversations. And in having tough conversations, I look to use this in a way to de-escalate if you have to have an accountability conversation, a developmental feedback conversation that's not going to be all, positive feedback, or if I just had a customer conversation to have where it was going to be tenuous, and I use this ability to try and de-escalate or soften it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like to have tough conversations, but I don't avoid it if it needs to be had. And I use that as a platform to try and de-escalate and create a bridge into having the conversation, to really assist me in managing it better. And especially with, I know Massy and all of those who will be familiar with Listen Like a Leader, there's the FBI conversation, feeling, behavior, impact, where you may have to speak to someone about a negative behavior that is affecting you somehow, and the impact of that behavior. And I would also use that in that aspect of my development and what I was trained to do while we were in the Massy group, the Listen Like a Leader program. So I found ways of how to not only find a way for the difference to add value, but then how to apply it to my current role. And that is where I think I would challenge all of you to ask yourself these questions. And the last one, while I reiterated to it in the beginning on the first point, you have to be, and this may sound counterintuitive, but you need to be confident enough to make yourself vulnerable. And I say that in the fact that when you have, most times, and this is just an example, when people have developmental conversations where their manager, direct report, most times you will find that it is the manager or supervisor telling the direct report, these are the gaps, or these are things that we have identified that you need to improve upon. These are the things you do good, and they give positive reinforcement. And then these are the things that are gaps that we feel you need to work on. But you find most times there's no feedback from the person being reviewed to say, this is something I would like to develop. This is something I feel is something unique to me that I would want the opportunity and maybe support, depending on the organization, what the organization can do to develop. And this is how I think this can add value to the organization. But you need to be able to open up. People may say make word vulnerable, but if you open up and give that level of feedback, then it allows people to help you to help yourself. So, that last point is just really to be confident enough to make yourself vulnerable and to really reach out to show that this is a unique quality that I think, whether it be, I am very versed, to give an example, you may have an IT administrator who may be doing a course in data analytics. And if he doesn't make it known, or she doesn't make it known that this is something I'm doing that would otherwise not be known, when you have a special project, somebody might say, hey, we can go to X, although he's the IT administrator, he or she's the IT administrator. I know from their developmental conversation and them giving me feedback that they're doing data analytics, and they can come into this project and handle this aspect of the project. And it gives the person opportunity to be exposed to different things in your organization as opposed to just IT administration. So, I would urge you to allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow it to have authentic conversations, but obviously, yes, the context of the conversation and how you have the conversation will be key. So once you have identified and go through the process of self-reflection and identifying what may be unique to you that can be of added value, your uniqueness has been identified, the added value has been determined, how can it be applied to your current role and position has been realized, then you need to become a SME, a subject matter expert, but while still being humble enough to learn from others. And when I say become a subject matter expert, so for me, in the example I gave you of myself in terms of being able to relate to people, I went and read leadership books. I went and read books on how to establish trust, attend leadership programs, and really look at different resources to help build that aspect that you consider unique and hone it as a skill, and spend the time, sweat the details in what would it take for me to become an SME in this area that I am unique in. And I think then that sets the catalyst for the competitive advantage. And how that is that becoming an SME builds trust, right? And for an example, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, but I don't think you will hire me to go and defend you in a murder case in the court, right? You obviously hire a lawyer, but if you want somebody to do a trial balance for you, you'll trust that I could fairly do that for you as a chartered accountant. So becoming an SME builds trust, and that trust will give opportunities where someone will say, well, look, as in the example with the IT administrator who may be doing data analytics, if you're certified in data analytics, and so that trust will be able to give you that opportunity to be involved, right? People will listen to what you have to say because they will view you as the one who is the repository of a lot of information and knowledge on this area, this aspect of things, right? You will be looked at as a special resource. And I've seen that within our organization where people will push and become specialized in an area. And it worked for their advantage to push them through the ranks as someone who's considered a special resource in that area and is specialized. And then we can rely on that person as a resource in that area. And even as important, you can be a source of inspiration. When people see you mobilizing yourself to become a subject matter expert, to give yourself that edge in that area, it may inspire them to want to do more for themselves as well. And I think that we owe it on ourselves to inspire. I know Mr. Warner gave a presentation. His presentation was on inspiring others for greatness. And I think that's how we can all lend a hand to inspire each other. If we see each other doing great and good things, transformational things, it will inspire others to want the same for themselves. So with all this knowledge and information and pushing yourself to become a subject matter expert, you need to be proactive, right? You can't sit down and study all of this and then sit down behind your desk and not make it be known. I think you have to seek out the opportunities, see where it can be utilized. It may not be very apparent where it can be utilized. Some opportunities may be very obvious. And some other opportunities that they like to say in Trinidad, you have to be a mako, right? You have to see what's going on in the organization or in life in general or in other aspects to say, well, look, I see an avenue here for myself to have a unique experience or provide a unique experience and search it out and try and make yourself available to make the best of the opportunity and make it a catalytic experience. But that proactiveness has to be complemented with communication. And with communication, it has to be a two-way street. I talked about the developmental conversations. I talked about you speaking to others, letting them know, being vulnerable, and communicating to them your need and desire to want to do something either different or how your skill set can add value. You know, in our organization, we have a multitude of projects going on, and there was this one individual who I know had, just from speaking to them and knowing, is very versed in analyzing data, and I immediately, when this project came up, I thought of that person. They're not directly involved. They would not otherwise be directly involved in the project otherwise due to the role that they fill. But because of the specialty nature of what we require for this project, that person came to mind. I had a conversation with the person, and they expressed their willingness and eagerness to be involved. And as a leader of an organization, that is the thing you love to hear. That's the thing for me that gets me out of bed, seeing people who are engaged, who are willing to want to be involved, want to make a difference, want to see the organization go forward in a very powerful way. And that communication is key, and it needs to be two-way. It can't be one way. It needs to be that feedback is given two ways, for lack of a better way of explaining it. Because a conversation with one person speaking is not a conversation. Unfortunately, with the world of Zoom, you know, Teams, this is more me speaking to you, and I guess we will get feedback afterwards in terms of questions. But you know, I cannot reiterate the importance of communicating. It is key to understanding, you know, with the 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey. You know, one of the pillars of it is seek to understand and then to be understood. So that is on the basis of two-way communication. Also, one thing I forgot to mention in the segment for being proactive, another example from the Stephen Covey 7 habits of highly effective people is anticipating a need. You know, they gave the example in that series of a guy who was doing reports for the president of the company, who had to in turn present it to their board. And while, you know, the president had his deficiencies as a leader, you know, other people in the organization spent their time speaking about his deficiencies and what he did wrong today, and you know, what was the next thing he was going to make a mistake of. But this guy, who the president entrusted with doing reports and stuff to him, anticipated his needs. And in anticipating his needs, the president was very impressed with his abilities. And, you know, he said, well, look, in the story from the training is, he pretty much said, look, this guy's done such a good job with these reports. I don't have to do anything with these. These can go straight to the board of directors to be reviewed. And because he's done such a good job, I want to give him the opportunity to present this directly to the board. And because of that exposure, because of anticipating that need, you know, in that story, the guy rose up the ranks to become the second in charge behind the president, and he was given a lot of opportunities. So, you know, that's why communication, anticipating a need, being proactive can have a lot of value in you establishing your competitive advantage, establishing what you do different, establish what value you bring to the table. And I think we are all looking for that in the organizational context. As myself as a leader, we're all looking for people who can do things differently, who can see things differently, who may be able to bring solutions to issues or problems by thinking differently, because we want to be solution-oriented. For every problem, we're looking for a solution. And I think people who can bring that to the table have a lot of value to the organization. And then basically, you know, you have to have a network of support. You know, I have a comment here from Warren Buffett, who made the comment: surround yourself with people that push you to do better. No drama or negativity, just higher goals, higher motivation, good times, and positive energy. No jealousy or hate. simply bringing out the absolute best in each other. And what I can say is all of us need a network. I mean, I have a network of peers that I meet regularly with, and I would call them more than peers. They're friends, but we vary very widely in our outlook, our roles. We're executives, but we operate in different spaces, and we really have a network that there's no judgment. Whether you have a good week, a bad week, if you want to bounce ideas off of someone, just think of something you're thinking of doing, think of a strategy you're looking to employ. No one in that group is going to say, oh my God, that's such an awful idea. But you don't want people who are going to be yes and tell you everything you want to hear. They will give you authentic feedback, but they're also there to support you through the good and the bad. Mind you, yes, there's still some healthy competitiveness between us, and every month, we'll come at our, chest puff out like two-man rat in a barrel, jostling to say, well, I got this accomplished this month, and I did this and I did that, for that healthy competition. But it is a space where, while we may be competitive with each other, is from a context of wanting the best for each other, to drive us to do better, to be better leaders, to be able to really give back to the team members that we work with and help them grow and enrich their experience wherever they may be operating in the different companies that we work for, and to really harness our ability to give that point of difference. And the good thing about difference is, because all of us are not the same, we all support each other in the areas that we may not necessarily be the strongest in. And to give an example of myself, I mean, I have a CFO. She's very structured, very, this is what we have to do. This is, and compartmentalizes things very well, and is very organized. I have a senior manager who is very good at seeing things from the team members' eyes, and giving. So anytime I wanted to make a decision and I want to know how the team members will feel about it, I consult this person. I say, well, I'm planning to do this, or do this level of communication, do that. How you think the team members will feel about it? And he really has a very good pulse on how they will react. And then I have another senior manager who's very technical, very mathematically focused. And that gives me a lot of support in those areas that I may not be necessarily the strongest, because no one man is an island. We all have to interact with each other, and the more we can develop and harness our abilities to help support each other, is the better we would all be off. For that. So I think I can't, reiterate enough. You need to have that network of support where, you can have the vulnerable conversations. You can have the conversations where I don't think this particularly went right, or I think I made a misstep here, or what is the guidance you can give me here. Having mentors is very key as well in developing these areas or aspects of your life. So the network of support is a key element to driving this home in terms of creating that competitive advantage for yourself. I just want to summarize the presentation, and just really say, a couple of key points that you need to just keep back in mind. The confidence in your ability to bring something unique to the table, no matter what it is. It can add value. I mean, the example I gave was the ability to have conversations, and how I approach conversations, and how that brought value to my role. I even had one of my former chairmen tell me, they could always count on me to have not shy away from tough conversations. As I said, it's not necessarily something I run to, but his comment was, I know you would not shy away and not do it. So you have the confidence that once you identify your unique capabilities, that it can add value. So you have identified the qualities and the capabilities, become an SME, spend the time learning, honing your skill. whatever that may be. Be proactive, communicate, and have that network that can really support you in taking it forward. I really believe that is key to striving for that competitive advantage. So I just want to thank you all for listening for me today for this conversation, and I look forward to any questions you all may have.
Jason, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here today and for being so vulnerable and authentic, and for showing us that we can use our uniqueness to make a difference in whatever sphere of life we choose to make that difference in. I'm now going to hand you over to Renee Burnett, who will be moderating the Q&A segment. Renee?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you so much, Jason. So our first question this morning is from Terrence. Would you recommend that we mentor others in our organization? If so, how should we leverage this in building our personal competitive advantage?
That's an emphatic yes. I believe, having internal and external mentors are key. So I would definitely endorse having a mentor-mentee relationship. If it's internal to the organization, it may take the form more of a coaching relationship rather than a mentor relationship. But if you are talking about becoming a mentor for your own personal competitive edge, it can work both ways. Yes, whether it be you are helping someone to develop theirs or you're doing it for yourself, because there obviously is an intrinsic value in being a mentor, not only for the person you're mentoring, but for yourself, because it then allows you to hone the skill you have in terms of giving guidance, giving coaching, giving feedback, being authentic, giving authentic feedback. And you really get a lot of pride and pleasure in seeing that person who you're mentoring develop and helping them. That is something I fully endorse. I mean, when I started my career, there was a partner at one of the big 4 firms that I worked at PwC, who took a special interest in developing me, giving me opportunities to go on overseas assignments and really help me develop professionally, which from all throughout my career, I've always been very appreciative of. So I would emphatically endorse being a mentor. And for the person receiving the mentorship, there is a lot of value in having that as a benefit to you in developing yourself.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question. Many times you are expected to conform to a culture or the way we do things. What approach do you suggest one should use to ensure that bringing your uniqueness does not work against you?
I tend to just go like a bull in a china shop and break down everything. No, I just joking. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to spend the time, because we have to accept that there are cultural norms in our organization, and moving away from those norms will be a little eyebrow raiser. But I think you just need to take your cues on how to approach it and who to maybe speak to. And I think that is where the conversations and making yourself vulnerable to specific people or key people who may be the right person to have the conversation with can help guide you. And if there's a norm that you think can be done differently and you're not sure how it may be accepted, you have to have that conversation to say, look, this is something I'm thinking of that can be done differently, whether it be with your manager or a mentor within the organization or somebody who is in a position of influence that you can have that conversation with. I think it will be key to make yourself vulnerable, express that it's maybe something that you think can be done differently, what their feedback is, or how they think you should approach the situation if it's going to be a change or viewed as a radical change. I think that's where the conversations help in terms of giving guidance on how to approach the situation.
All right, thank you so much. And we're moving along nicely. In attempting to identify your personal competitive advantage, what role does feedback play? Who did you use to guide you with this?
It was twofold. I used formal feedback in my developmental conversation with my direct manager, and then obviously through my network of peers who and a kind of a informal. So I had my relationship with my direct manager, who I would speak to get formal feedback. I had a mentor who I outside of the organization, but who was an executive in his own right, that I would speak to from developmental. I have a concern, or this may be something that I feel that I want to bring up in a different aspect outside of it being up in the professional sense with my direct manager, and then also with my peers, who would give me feedback on whether it's right, wrong, if my approach was wrong, if I did something today and spoke to someone in a certain way, they would tell me, well, no, I think the way you did it was not the right way. So I used I used three different avenues of getting feedback, because I thought that would give me a broad base and a more comprehensive line of sight. Because as you know, I don't know how many of y'all may have done like 360 feedback where you have blind spots. So you don't know what you don't know. People may see things that you are not aware that you may be doing, and that is key. When I wanted to take advantage of certain opportunities, say at PwC, there was a new line of service that the local firm was getting into. I wanted to try and do that because nobody else was doing it. So I saw that as a way of me establishing a unique position within the firm. I went and spoke to a partner and said, well, look, I see this may be an opportunity here. You all may be getting this. I would like to take advantage of this opportunity and get training in it. So for feedback, I used three things, but then when it came to taking advantage of opportunities, I guess in some regards, I took a very direct approach. And a direct approach may not be for everyone, but I think you need to look at the situation and adapt your style and flex to see what approach may be the most appropriate, or seek feedback as to what people may think may be the most appropriate way forward.
Wonderful, thank you. We have someone here who's asking if you can put up the summary slide again. So on to our next question. If I am confident about networking, if I am not confident about networking, can you give some suggestions as to how to network effectively? Are there any guidelines you can share?
For me, I think my ability to network sprung from when I was 17 years old. I had just finished CXCs. And I remember my mother telling me, if you feel you're staying home for the whole summer, you have another thing coming. And my mother signed me up to do Dale Carnegie. And I remember that summer I was so upset. All my friends were going to the beach and, going liming, and I was stuck in going to Dale Carnegie after CXCs. But, I have to thank my mother for that, because in that, it taught me a lot of, how to win friends and influence people, how to speak effectively. So training, reading books, because everyone will have a different approach. Some people join Toastmasters to learn to help them network. I didn't go that route. I did it through, my own research, my own reading, looking at YouTube videos on how to, one, do presentations, two, how to go out into social aspects and meet people. And to really build your confidence. I would think if you're now starting out and there's a little intimidation about going to it, maybe, well, I mean, it's COVID, so I don't know how many networking events are taking place now, or if they're taking place virtually. But I've seen people who've used going with a buddy, so that when they arrive at the networking event, they're technically not on their own, they're with a friend, but then you have to push yourself to go out and mingle and mix and meet people. And I found for me, that level of training, that from, it taught me how to start a conversation, how to continue a conversation, how to pivot if the conversation is getting boring or you've stalled in the conversation and there's nothing being said and you hear the proverbial crickets. Those are things that work for me, and I have to After this day, my mom keeps reminding me of that. I sent you to that course that summer after CXC, and you can never repay me for that. So I think that worked for me.
I love that one. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next question. How do you avoid becoming frustrated when you bring your uniqueness and your talents, but you are not growing in the organization?
Well, I think to how to manage that frustration, I don't know to what level you're having a conversation with your direct manager, or if for somebody more senior to you. It depends. If you're speaking to someone more senior and you're not getting the feedback you would like, or the opportunities you would like to see, maybe speak to someone else in the organization who you can speak to confidently, or if you have a mentor, to say, well, okay, where do I go from here? Is it that there's another opportunity coming up in another aspect of the company that maybe I will want to transition to and see if I can take advantage of that opportunity? Is it that because of the confines of the existing department or where I'm working, it's just something that cannot be facilitated due to the inherent nature? I don't want you to give up on the opportunity, but I think that sometimes you have to be realistic. In some instances, in some scenarios, the opportunity may not exist, and to utilize that unique capability, you may need to seek an opportunity maybe somewhere else in the firm or company, and see if that may be available, or maybe volunteer for some other project and some other aspect of the company that may be ongoing, and maybe you might get noticed by another more senior person in the organization to say, hey, this is someone who seems to have a lot of value here. Maybe I should look at them for my team, and see if that is something that maybe works.
Okay, great. Thank you again. After you establish your personal competitive advantage, how do you maintain it? What suggestions would you give, especially in these changing times and discussions around skill relevance, upskilling and reskilling?
If you have done 7 habits of highly effective, the 7th habit is I think is sharpen the saw. So it's about continuous learning, continuous improvement. I mean, you're in the right place for this, Massy Learning Institute. I can't give a better endorsement than this. It is really about just keeping yourself up to date, looking at different things, reading different books. For me, I look for different books on how team building, how to inspire, how to motivate yourself. But then you may be something technical you're looking at in a very specific field. So it all depends on what you're trying to keep relevant. I mean, there's a broad spectrum of things that one can look at to keep yourself relevant. But you should always be keeping yourself relevant. I mean, in a lot of professions, like legal, accounting, and stuff, you must do a certain level of professional CPDs, which is continuing professional development. So for me, by right, I have to do X amount of hours of continuous development every year to keep my qualification. But outside of that, there needs to be a natural thirst for knowledge. And that is the way you keep yourself competitive, by keeping abreast, whether it be reading a leadership book, whether it be reading a book on motivation, or how to inspire, or teamwork. I mean, there are lots of books. I love to read books from John Maxwell. I think he's a fantastic author. So there are many things that you can do, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, or you have to attend an expensive training course. There are many things to your fingertips that either book or researching it online, or there's a lot of information that is available to us to keep ourselves relevant, depending on what type of information you're looking for.
Thank you so much for that endorsement too as well. Great. All right, moving on to our next question. If you are a strong introvert, how are you able to allow others to see your uniqueness, your strengths, and your capability?
For me, the proof is in the pudding. I work with some of the best people I've ever worked with are introverts. But that doesn't mean they don't flex on a daily basis and appear to be extroverted. It's just at the end of the day, they will be tired of people like me and need to get away. So at 4 or 5 o'clock, they're running through the door. And if I run in after them to go and review something else, they're like, nah, I need to see you tomorrow, right? Because obviously introverted people, when they flex and expend a lot of their energy in appearing extroverted, it obviously ties and they need time to recoup and rebuild that energy. But I would say a lot of introverted people have been very strong people I've worked with because introverted people are very focused. They can really sit down and look at whether it be numbers or analysis or analyzing documents, or very strong. And I don't ever want people to, that's one thing, I don't ever want people to discount being introverted as a disadvantage. It's just difference. It's just difference. I may be extroverted, but my ability to sit down and focus for hours on end may not be as strong as somebody who may be introverted, who that may be a unique quality they have. So don't ever think being introverted is a disadvantage. It's just obviously in the world we live in and how we have to function on a daily basis and the environments we have to function in. It just means you have to flex a bit to be able to, I don't even want to use the word function effectively, but just to be able to interact with people of different personalities and different temperaments. But I would never say that it is a disadvantage.
Awesome, thank you. All right, can you speak a little bit more on confidence? Because we know that confidence plays a role there. So can you share a little more on the role it plays and why?
Well, if say for example, okay, let me see if I can give an example. There was a team member who I worked with who was in one area of the business but wanted to make a transition to a different area of the business, which they had a passion for. And it was a passion of theirs to move to this, and they were confident enough to approach me directly to say, while I am in this department, this area is a passion of mine, and this is where I see myself going professionally, and this is where I would want to work for the rest of my in this until I have to retire, because I'm very passionate. And because that person expressed such a passion for the opportunity, we gave them an opportunity on a trial basis to prove themselves, and they continued to perform. They continued to perform, and then the opportunity came that the main person in the role went on to another opportunity, and that person was just the natural selection to move up and be promoted into that position. And it just came down to that they were confident that this is something they wanted to do, that they were confident that they could add value for the organization, that they could add benefit, and they were just very steadfast in making sure that they work towards that goal. They even straddled working in 2 departments, and I'm sure that was very stressful for them, having to straddle working in 2 departments at the same time, but they were so passionate about making that move that they stuck with it. So I think the confidence is to believe in your ability, believe in what you have and what you do that is unique to you has value. And I think to build up that confidence, that's why I say the communication, the network, because you may second guess yourself, right? Before that conversation that I had about my ability to interact with people, I would have just said, but that's just me, that's just my personality, that ain't nothing special. Not that I'm saying I'm manna from heaven, but it then made me believe that this is something that if I hone it can add value to what I do on a daily basis and my role as a leader. So I think those are the things. The confidence is backed up by, communicating, networking, having that circle. They talk about circle of influence and circle of concern. This will fall into your circle of influence, where you can directly influence how you approach the situation, and then how you allow people to support you in that journey developing that conference if you are second guessing it as something unique that can add value.
Great, thank you. Not a question, but we have a comment here from an anonymous person. Thanks for the insights on being an introvert. That is also my daily struggle. I try my best to adapt, as my role in marketing does not necessarily go well with an introverted personality.
Well, I mean, I know it will be a struggle, but don't ever think of it as a disadvantage. It's just you approach things differently. And what I would say is I'm glad that you're sticking with it, and I think just continue to learn other ways of being able to flex and deal with it. I mean, hats off to you, introverted and marketing. Normally people wouldn't put the two together, but if you're operating successfully in it shows. You don't necessarily have to be, gregarious and a big personality to be in marketing. You can, go along doing what you have to do and be effective and achieve success. And you don't have to be the loudest one in the room. I know when I go certain places with my wife, she figure you always want to be the loudest one in the room, and I could just see her eyes rolling. I could hear your mouth across the room, right? You don't have to be like me to be successful in marketing. You're proving that you just plod along and work hard and put in the effort and add value and continuously add value, and you'll do well. So hats off to you. Hats off to you.
Great, thank you so much. I think we'll close off the Q&A here as we're running out of time. So thank you so very much, Jason. Again, I hand back over to you, Dawn.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Renee, for your moderating. And thank you again, Jason. This has been a great start to our September webinars. Once again, thank you for being you, as I said before, being vulnerable here in this space and for sharing with this topic. We've come to the end of another MLI webinar, and I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming back after our nice break. It was lovely to see all of you signing in. So thanks again for joining us. Please look out for our MLI flyers. We have a mindfulness program which is coming up during the course of next week. We invite you to sign up. It is a paid workshop, but look out for other MLI complimentary sessions and paid workshops as well. So until next time, remember to continue to level up, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.